Well, good morning or afternoon or evening whenever you're watching this. We're looking to the lesson for June 30th. Now, these lessons begin to drop the Monday before. I've been doing this in 4 parts, maybe 3 this time, and on Friday I'll drop the whole. But today's lesson comes from the Psalms 25 through 30, and it's entitled The Powerful Voice of God. Now, our study guide will cover Psalm 29, and if you have a study guide, you can read up on that. We also have the devotions and the commentaries that helps in those as well. But today I'm going to study the 25th Psalm. Now, this is a little bit difficult for me going through the Psalms and covering all of these. They're so wonderful and so great. I have gone through my notes to see when I've preached on these in the recent past, the last year or so, and what the study guide covers. And so if I've preached on them, most of those you can find on our YouTube channel, maybe even Facebook if you go back far enough. And then I did a series on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th Psalms in Wednesday night, and those aren't on video. If you weren't here, you just missed it. But you can study those, of course, on your own, and they're a wonderful series. But as I looked through the lessons, and I thought, well, which one will I teach? I hadn't covered the 25th, 26th, and the 30th Psalms, and I'll probably cover one of those in a sermon coming up in the next month or so. And I read the 25th. I'm like, well, how do you keep on going? So let's just look at the 25th Psalm, and maybe in a few months I'll cover the 26th or the 30th, and I've covered the other 3, or the study guide covered one. I've covered 2 of the others in sermons last year or so you can look those up. But the 25th Psalm is what we're going to look at today, and I've entitled this the Way of Help. And it's a Psalm of David, and of course, remember who David is. He is the king of Israel. He's been placed there by God Himself, and I do think this is the heart of the king. And when we look around those that we are responsible for in some way, such as King David, he was responsible for the people of Israel. God put him in that role of responsibility, and so his heart was for them. And when I look at myself, I'm pastor of Mount Calvary Baptist Church. Pray for them and pray for their pastor. I'm a father. I have 3 children. I'm a husband. I have 1 wife. And yes, just 1 wife. And she's a dandy. She puts up with me. Bless her heart. Pray for her and pray for our children as well. Cheryl is a great blessing for us all. And then there's other places we'll find that we're in a place of responsibility. And when it comes in those places of responsibility, I think especially when we get to the last verse of this psalm, we'll find that David is really concerned about the people of Israel. And so we should be concerned about our people, whoever those people are, in whatever situation we're in. And how do we deal with that concern for them? Well, we need to make sure we do what we're supposed to do. You see, the Lord has a path for all of our lives, and we should follow those paths. Well, in this introduction, I've used up 33 minutes and 40 seconds. So let's get on it. The first section, I'm borrowing these sections from our commentary, and this first section, the way of help, verses 1 through 7. Now we're going to look at verse 1 and 2, and I'll go till I run out of time, and then we'll pick up tomorrow. It says here, David says, "Unto thee, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. O my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, and let not mine enemies triumph over me." And in these first 2 verses, I think we see the relationship of David with the Lord. I didn't want to edit, so I've been eating peanuts, so it's stuck. I should edit that out. Not going to, because sometimes it's fun. All right, let's keep on going. So here we see the relationship of David with the Lord. And by the way, the world tries to put us in categories according to maybe our sinfulness or maybe even our goodness. But the Lord really only puts us in this category. You have a relationship with Him, or you do not. Now look at this relationship that David has with the Lord. He says, "Oh Lord, I do lift up my soul." And he's coming to the Lord, somebody who can help. For after all, who's the one who put David in this position? It is the Lord. And if you're in the position of, like me, father or husband or pastor, who should you go to ask for help? Well, the person who put you there, and that's the Lord. And whatever your position you're in, and it could be son or it could be daughter, be those people who go to the Lord and ask for help. And he says here, "My God, I trust in you." And so here's the foundation. I just trust you. I'm going to trust you. I understand that you know what you're doing, and you've put me here for some reason, maybe. Maybe we don't know why. And it's just flabbergasting that the Lord would use us, isn't it? But isn't it wonderful? But he says, "I trust in you, and let me not be ashamed, and let not my enemies triumph over me." And so when the Lord puts us in these particular places, we do understand that it is for battle. Now, probably not a physical battle, though historically, oftentimes it has been. But I thank the Lord I'm in this time when I can be a coward for the most part. But so many great people who have died and lived for me so that I can have such freedom. I'm very thankful for that. But nevertheless, we are in a spiritual battle. And when we're in these spiritual battles, the Lord's put us in these places to fight these spiritual battles with His strength, working through our lives. And so we ought to have this same type of attitude. Lord, let me not be ashamed because I'm trusting in you. And let this be something that is a light and a delight for the honor of the Lord, and to show light even to the enemies, but especially to those that you have leadership involvement with. And then in verse 3, he says, "Yea, let none that wait on thee be ashamed. Let them be ashamed which transgress without cause." And so others have this relationship, and David's praying for them as well. And others don't have this relationship, and David also prays for them that they will be ashamed. And shame is not a bad thing in a certain sense. Shame should bring us to a place where we correct ourselves, or we seek forgiveness, in particular when it comes to salvation and service of the Lord, seeking forgiveness and correction in the way of service. But first off, David prays for those who have trusted in the Lord. "Let none that wait on thee be ashamed." And so when you're in leadership position, it's so good to have other people who are working with you. Now, you might think, okay, they're working for you because you're the leader, maybe in the particular sense, but no, really, we're all working for God, and God has a structure of things, and in the home, and the husband is the head of the home, and the wife is the helpmate to help him do that job which the Lord has given him to do, and in particular to train the children and nurture and admonition of the Lord, and all these things work together. But then he also prays for those, and it might seem mean the way that he says it here, and let them be ashamed which transgress without cause, and those who are going against God, for instance, let them be ashamed. But again, I mentioned shame can be the motivating factor to encourage people to do what's right. And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we might be a little bit hard on that, but sometimes we forget that. You know, it's good when people realize there's sin in their life, not for the sin's sake, but so that they might forsake the sin and they get right to serving the Lord the way they ought to. Now, when it comes to salvation, it's very good when people understand their sinful condition before God and that they need forgiveness of sin, and that's in Jesus. And so that's good, and that's why using the law to bring conviction is great, because who gave the law? God gave the law, and the Holy Spirit's the one who actually does the convicting. And when you just relay those things out of love, listen, I'm telling you that you have a sickness. It's very dire. Not only will it cause physical death, and you'll not escape that, except the rapture, but it also causes what we call the spiritual death, an eternity without God, except you come to the great physician, Jesus. And so we need to square with those things that are bad, that might bring us shame, so that we might seek forgiveness and then not be ashamed. You know, when the teacher would call on me at school to give an answer, and I knew the answer, I was pretty proud to be called on. Didn't happen much, so I remember when it did. But there were many times when I tried to hide because I didn't want to be ashamed. But shame would make me study and study so that I might know the proper answers for the test and the homework. And so it is with the service of God. If we use that to guide us back to the service of God, shame can be a good thing, but we shouldn't seek to shame people for the sake of shame, but to share God's holiness and His standard so that we, as well as others, might serve Him. Well, I'm going to stop here because I've gone a little bit long, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow.